The dark side of living in Kansas City. Look, every city has its pros and cons, and Kansas City, it's no exception. But today what we're going to talk about are some of the challenges that people living here face, such as tornadoes, icy winters, real estate tax increases, crime, as well as traffic. So stick around though, because I'm going to show you how I help my clients weigh the challenges against the benefits of living in Kansas City and what makes this such a special place to live. Hey, listen, if you are contemplating making a move to the Kansas City area and you want to know everything there is about living in Kansas City, then subscribe to my channel. Simply tap on the bell below so you'll be the first to receive notifications about changes that are taking place in the Kansas City's real estate market. My name is Chris Pucci with the Living in Kansas City real estate team. And we get calls from people just like you every day. So if you're thinking about making a move in 9 days, 90 days, or even 9 months, please feel free to reach out. All my information is listed below, and I can be contacted via phone, text, email, or better yet, schedule a Zoom call. Look, there is nothing we would like than to help you make that smooth move to the Kansas City metropolitan area. Where do we start? We're going to start with tornadoes. That's right. If you've never lived in an area that is subject to tornadoes, well, a tornado can be a very, very scary experience. Now, Kansas City lies in what we affectionately call Tornado Alley. This simply means that Kansas City has a propensity for a higher degree of tornado activity than almost all the other parts of the United States, with perhaps the exception of Oklahoma. Now, the tornado season itself, really it's in springtime, but most of that activity is really from about the beginning of April to maybe the second week in June. I have lived here most of my life, and I have to say there have been very few tornadoes that have actually touched ground, and the ones that have all done so on the very outskirts of the Kansas City metropolitan area where there's minimal damage. But here's the thing about tornadoes. Unlike earthquakes, tornadoes, we have ample warning. If the conditions are favorable for the potential formation of a tornado, the Weather Service is going to issue what they call a tornado watch, which simply says, look, folks, you need to stay alert because the conditions are such that a tornado could potentially be formed. Now, if things continue to progress towards that eventuality, then they're going to issue a tornado warning, which simply means, hey, a tornado is potentially imminent or may actually be on the ground. So typically, here's what happens at that point. Those of you who have never experienced a tornado and you've just transitioned into the Kansas City metropolitan area, you're probably heading to the basement, and you're probably the smarter of the groups. Because the rest of us who've lived here forever, we're all going outside. And here's what we're looking for. We're looking to see if there's a big wall cloud approaching. Or are the skies rotating instead of just going going west to east? Or has the skies kind of got sort of a greenish cast, and has it all of a sudden got eerily still? I mean, nothing's moving and there's no sound. All of those are ominous signs. But should you hear what sounds like a locomotive approaching, you need to get into safety immediately. So yes, tornadoes are a potential risk, but you always are going to have ample warning to take the necessary precautions to avoid really getting hurt in a tornado. And again, I've lived here virtually all my life, and I've never seen a tornado. I think I've only gone to the basement one time in my entire life. After a while, what might seem like a very scary proposition, it just becomes one more thing that you deal with and makes Kansas City that much more exciting. So now let's talk about Kansas City's winters. They can be at times really harsh, particularly if you've come from the south or the southwest where you're used to really warm temperatures, or if you're coming from the west coast where the temperature is always perfect. Now, here in Kansas City, we're going to get snow. We're going to get ice. We're going to get cold temperatures, and in the peak of our winter, we're going to be in the 20s. And there's also going to be times when we're actually going to have the temperature drop into single digits or maybe even below zero. Now, add the wind chill to that, and you're talking about some brutally frigid temperatures. Having said that, fortunately, it's very rare that we get a lot of those types of days, and sometimes we'll go a whole winter without the temperature ever really getting below 20 degrees. We do get anywhere from about 18 to 20 inches of snow. In fact, this past year, we actually got 16 and a half inches of snow in literally about 8 hours. And it was terrific. First of all, it kind of shut down the whole city for about 8 hours. But it gave everybody a chance to go out and enjoy the snow. I mean, the snow was perfect for making snowballs, snow forts, igloos, sledding. And after you've had a chance to play with your kids in the snow, you go inside, sit around the fire, have a cup of hot cocoa. I mean, it is a perfect Hallmark event. Now, what really sucks? Ice storms. Because ice storms, they can take out the power, and there's nothing worse than trying to stay warm in a house with no power, and the streets become impassable. I don't care if you have two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, eight-wheel drive, it doesn't really make any difference. You don't get any traction. The best thing that can happen is you can slide and crash into the other crazy person who's out there trying to drive on ice. But there's no reason to panic and feel free like you're never going to get out again, because the street crews here do an amazing job. Whether it be snow or ice, within about 24 hours, they'll have all the roads passable and you can get to anywhere you want to go. In fact, it will be like there was no inclement weather whatsoever. One of the positive aspects about the winter is it's not 3 months long. It's only about 6 weeks. So it really starts about the 1st of January, maybe to about the middle of February. That's where we're going to get a really cold temperatures. But even during that period of time, we're going to get days where it's actually 40, 50, or even 60 degrees. So it's really up and down. Honestly, I'd rather just be all 20 degrees, because once you get acclimated to it, you don't even notice the cold. It's when it goes from 20 to 40 to 15. That's when you really begin to notice the cold, and it makes it kind of miserable. The good news though, once you've got about to the middle of February, now you're just kind of around the corner is spring. So there you're looking at warmer temperatures, and once again, those lovable pesky tornadoes. So we've talked enough about the weather. Let's talk about real estate taxes. Property tax increases, that is another real challenge. Now, Kansas City, remember, straddles the Kansas and Missouri state line. So the taxes are going to vary depending on what side of the state line you're on, what county you're in, and what school district you're in. In Kansas City, for instance, back in 2023, a couple of years ago, they had this massive increase in assessed value. In fact, the average assessment was 30%. And some folks actually had increases, believe it or not, of 100% or more. In fact, there was a story of one lady whose real estate taxes went up $70,000. Can you imagine? On the Kansas side, it's a whole different story. They are seeing increases, but it's not due to reassessment. It has to do with the fact that home values are going up. Now, some Johnson County suburbs, such as Shawnee, have seen higher increases than some of the other suburbs in Johnson County, but that's really due to the fact that they're building more expensive homes than they're used to seeing, which kind of somehow has skewed the real estate taxes in Shawnee, Kansas. So the good news, though, is you do have the means to actually appeal your taxes. So I have actually helped a number of my neighbors successfully appeal their taxes and reduce their tax burden. Now, again, being a lender, I tend to pay particular attention to real estate taxes, because sometimes that's the difference between somebody being able to get the loan they want for the house they want to buy. So for instance, I just recently closed a transaction with a client of mine where I actually represented him as his real estate agent. and I pointed out to him that the taxes on this house are the highest, not only on the block, but for similar homes in the neighborhood. So once he closed on the home, he took all my research and information, presented it to the tax assessor, and they agreed he needed to have his taxes reduced. They got him to reduce it by over $200 a month. So here's the thing. It's my job to help my clients weigh the cost of taxes against the quality of the schools, the value of the home, the potential for appreciation, as well as the amenity. I work at giving my clients all the information they need so they can make a decision that's in their best interest. So, having talked about real estate taxes, we're going to turn our attention now to crime and safety. Crime is another consideration that comes up often. Now, Kansas City does have a higher crime rate than a lot of other major metropolitan areas, but like most large major cities in the United States, the crime tends to be pretty localized. For instance, in Kansas City, most of the real crime takes place in localized areas close to downtown in the urban core. Now, again, you have to remember, Kansas City straddles the Kansas-Missouri state line, and there is a difference between the crime in, let's say, Johnson County, Kansas, compared to the crime on the Missouri side, particularly in Jackson County. The suburbs in Johnson County, for instance, they're going to be typically show very low crime, and they tend to be very safe. And the reason for that is it's pretty simple. They have very active HOAs. They participate in neighborhood watches. They're very tight communities. But more importantly, they're willing to not only invest in their police, but they're going to support them as well. Now, this is also true of some of the Missouri's suburbs. What's disturbing is we're seeing an increase in crime in some of the more traditional, safe neighborhoods in the Kansas City proper area. And what we're seeing is an increase in vandalism, burglary, as well as auto break-in and theft. And most of this can be attributed really to poor decisions that have been made by the local politician. The real key, though, is knowing the neighborhood and your comfort level. What I do to help my clients make that decision is I help them in the research. I'll typically direct them to at least 3 different crime sites that they can use to help make their decisions, such as spotcrime.com, neighborhoodscout.com, and then my favorite, communitycrimemap.com. I love this site. First of all, it's real simple to use. You type in the address of the house that you're thinking about purchasing. What'll happen is it'll generate a map, and it'll depict on this map all the different types of crime that have taken place. If you want, you can actually hit the grid icon, and it will actually generate all the crime in a chronological order according to date, listing the type of crime, when it occurred, and things of that nature. This kind of information helps my clients make an informed decision that's in their best interest. So that being said, what we're going to do now is we're going to tackle our last topic, and that has to do with traffic. Now, compared to cities like LA, Denver, Chicago, Dallas, I'm telling you, our traffic's not bad at all. In fact, the average commute time for Kansas Cityans is 23 minutes, as opposed to the national average of 27 minutes. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean we don't have bottlenecks. We have the infamous Kansas City downtown loop. This is a tangle of roads that all converge in a loop around downtown. You've got interstates I-70, I-29, I-35, I-670. You have highways 169 and 71, and then you have Southwest Trafficway. All of these are major arteries that pull people in and out of the downtown area. And if there's construction, or if there's a wreck, or all of a sudden we've got a inclement weather that's impeding traffic, it can bring it down to a standstill. Now, if you are out in the suburbs, like in Johnson County, we have Highway 69. This is a major means of getting people from southern Johnson County into downtown Kansas City. And because of the incredible growth that's occurring in South Johnson County, the traffic here is just incredible. Now, what they have attempted to do to mitigate it is they're in the process of actually installing express lanes. And these express lanes should be ready by the end of this year, but until that time, you're still going to have to put up with traffic delays. Another area that's become a big bottleneck is South I-35 from about Gardner, Kansas to I-35 interchange. You're going to see backups all the way to 119th and I-35 and 135th and I-35. What's interesting is most of the people who transition into the Kansas City area tell me they don't mind the little extra time it takes to get to work, even if there's the delays, because it's more than makes up for the ability to get larger yards, better schools, and better amenities. Now, there is one last thing that I do need to share with you, and that's the fact that Kansas City is very car dependent. Most suburbs, they're all designed around driving. Public transit is very limited. In fact, our public transit is really a part of our urban core. There you're going to see a robust busing. There's also the downtown streetcar, which they're continuing to expand. But if your desire is to live in one of the suburbs, you're going to be looking at being dependent upon a car for work, errands, and taking and picking up your kids for schools. So while traffic can be a challenge, especially during the rush hour, most families moving here still find it's easier and less stressful than in other major cities. And as your realtor, I'm going to help you figure out the most efficient means to commute to and from your place of employment so you're making the best use of your time. So there you have it, the dark secrets of living in Kansas City. So as you can see, they really weren't as bad as it sounded like, and I'm here to help you figure out how to best navigate them in your search for a new home. So look, if you have any questions or you'd like to talk a little bit more about your particular situation, let's set up a time where we can chat. You can get a hold of me again by phone, text, email, or better yet, do a Zoom call. All the information is below. And do me a favor if you would. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel. And finally, once again, in addition to being a realtor, I am also a lender. And if you're like most of us, you're going to need financing in order to purchase your home. So I am an invaluable resource to help you navigate the process and answer any questions. Look, the feedback that I get from my clients is they really like the fact that they're only having to talk to one person. It streamlines the communications. It makes it easier in the house hunting aspect, and it takes a lot of the frustration out. So all that being said, thank you for watching the video, and I look forward to showing you around the Kansas City metro area.